From the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight with Ryan Edwards and Benjamin Allbright.
Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight as we're going to take a look at some of George Paton's comments he made to DenverBroncos.com. Went over several of the position groups, and we'll start here at the top with wide receivers. Discussed with Aric DiLalla some of the thoughts about why they locked up Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick early, understanding that once they got to free agency, it was going to cost more, right? Well, right. And on top of that, very quickly, on top of that, just the overall impression of the group, it sounds like he's really high on them, but he did not get the expectations met with that group last year.
There was some caveats to that, though. I mean, he specifically said, we need to get you the quarterback, and that was a very specific shot at the previous coaching staff and at the level of quarterback play that they had last year. It went from the Dallas game to the Cincinnati game after Drew Lock took over was the last. No receiver caught a touchdown in between that span. Yeah. Like it was Tim Patrick to Tim Patrick in that span. So, I think that I think there's a recognition of the problem. I think that's you can look at the coaching search and see part of that. You can look at the way that they've done things, the way they go about things, and now George's specific comments. They recognized there was a problem. Teddy Bridgewater wasn't it. Going hyper conservative wasn't it, and so now they are looking to find a viable long-term solution.
And he talked about how young they are and still very talented. I do wonder, though, when we keep having these conversations about the youth of the team, especially on the offensive side of the ball, at what point can the expectations be raised from they're young and we're still waiting for them to arrive at that level of production? Because we've seen the flashes, right? We know the flashes. We know what Jerry Jeudy is capable of. We saw him in college. We've seen flashes in his rookie year. We know Courtland Sutton has capability of being a Pro Bowler. Tim Patrick has been a very, very solid wide receiver, too, if not borderline wide receiver one at times. It hasn't all come together, though. So when I was reading his comments about whether they're young, very talented, I'm wondering at what point can that change into, will we have higher expectations this group needs to really perform?
Well, I mean, again, it's a quarterback getting you the football. You had a quarterback last year wouldn't get him the ball. I mean, you can't perform if they're not throwing it to you. So I think that's part of it. Jeudy and Sutton coming back off injury, I think that affected things a little bit as well. To answer your question in a blanket answer, like by year two, you should be able to tell by year two, and you'll know by year three. You could kind of.
So we're kind of in year two and three.
Well, I mean, this will be year three of Jerry Jeudy. I mean,
that's right.
Courtland Sutton, we should know. This year we should know on most of these players, and so, Fant, all those guys, we should know, and so that's kind of the thing. The end result, though, is contingent on something else. A receiver's production is contingent on the play of his quarterback. And so at the end of the day, you've got to have somebody who can get you the ball, and I think we all recognize that Teddy Bridgewater was not it.
Now the tight end group, similar conversation, likes Noah Fant's abilities, likes Albert Okwuegbunam's abilities, acknowledges there's some things to work on, especially in the run game, and he wants to see them block better, but he says, I see the flashes. I know they're there. The consistency factor, Noah Fant talked about that and how he wanted to be a household name. He talked about how he wanted to be one of the premier guys in the league, went to that tight ends camp in the offseason. But the fact is, what those guys have is elite consistency. They are that way every single game. They don't take games off. And I'm not saying he took games off, but there were games where he wasn't as big a factor if he wants to be one of those guys.
Well, not just games off, plays off.
Yeah.
Let's just drill it down to the micro. You've got to be doing the same thing every play, not just every game. And so I think Noah Fant and Albert O need to replicate that. O has had some injuries and some other things. He's been a little inconsistent. Fant, we know about the blocking and all that. Another thing with Noah Fant, though, is if he doesn't get the ball early, he kind of looks like he gets frustrated out there, and that causes a change in his demeanor, a change in the way he's got to learn to get out of his own head. Hey, I didn't get the ball in the first quarter, but I'm going to be open in the second. I'm gonna be the guy down the stretch. I'll be the guy to salt the game, whatever it takes. And that's what winners do. Winners don't let frustration stop them. They don't let circumstance stop them. They're okay. Well, I didn't get it this play. I'm gonna be available the next play. That's the winner's mentality, and that's something that Noah Fant he's been productive. But when he wraps his head around that, and when he brings that home every play, he has the potential to be a Pro Bowl caliber player.
And it's amazing. He's going into his final year of his contract, so this is kind of the last spot here. If he's going to remain with the Broncos, he's going to have to put it all together. He's had, again, flashes, as you talked about there with George Paton, but he needs to be able to put it all together. One of the most telling quotes from this entire article for me was on right tackle. Immediately asked about right tackle, the quote started, I think it's going to be a pretty strong tackle draft. There's some really good ones in here. We need to fill that void. Then he gets into Bobby Massey, talked about Calvin Anderson, talked about Cam Fleming, but for me, the highlight of that quote is right off the bat. We've got to fill that void, and it's got to be a long-term fix. We've done this too long with this rotating stock of guys going into right tackle.
Yeah, we all like Bobby Massey. He's a nice guy, and he will probably have a spot on this roster next year, but they do need a long-term solution. I think that's what he's referring to there. This is a great class for edge rushers and offensive tackles, both of which the Broncos need. So you probably see them go to the well on that. May go, may double dip. We talked about double dipping in the top 100 for receivers a couple of years ago. I'm being told this is going to be one of those, if they have picks in the top 100, emphasis on if they have picks in the top 100, that tackle and edge rusher are the areas to kind of keep your eye on. As far as Calvin Anderson goes, they like him better on the left side, and they like him better as a backup for Garrett Bowles. Not that Garrett misses a whole lot of games or anything like that, but Calvin's just better on the left side.
Good insurance policy to have.
It's a good policy to have. I don't think that they believe that he's a starting caliber right tackle in this league. And Bobby Massey is probably short-termer. They need to find a longer-term solution.
Definitely. Let's get to inside linebackers here as we're rolling through some of the quotes and comments from George Paton at DenverBroncos.com. You guys can go check this out for yourself. This on inside linebackers, lots of options here, right? They have to decide on Josey Jewell, Alexander Johnson. Those are a couple of the big names. Of course, there's also Kenny Young is going to be an unrestricted free agent. So he started there with the guys that he has to make decisions on, and he mentioned Josey Jewell as a glue guy, and he said that there was a drop-off when Josey was out of there. I mean, you think back to years ago when Josey was drafted, or even shortly after that, we would have conversations being like, yeah, they just probably need a little bit more. But by the fourth year there for Josey Jewell, he really was a productive inside linebacker for the Broncos, and they did miss him. I don't know what your feel is on Alexander Johnson, Josey Jewell, Kenny Young, and especially when you take into account that Baron Browning will probably get more time there next year. Same thing with Jonas Griffith, might get some opportunities there. What's your feel on that group?
Well, and you left out Micah Kaiser.
Right.
I think that Browning is obviously going to be here. I think they like what they saw out of Griffith and Kaiser. Those guys will at least be at training camp and have a shot. And then that brings in the question, because you're probably going to keep 4 inside backers, maybe 5, depending on your special teams looks, and that puts an odd man out. I would suggest that Kenny Young, who can probably get more money on the open market, might be the odd guy out. Josey Jewell also might be the odd guy out, although he does bring special teams value. Alexander Johnson just depends on what the contract demands are. They'd love to have him back, but if the money's too much, you're talking about an aging guy who's not an elite athlete at that position, that may be something you bail on. Josey is fine if he's linebacker 3 or 4 for you. If he's higher than that, that's a problem. You like his sub-package ability. You like his ability on special teams. You don't want him starting every now.
On the outside linebackers, he talked about Bradley Chubb fighting through injuries, liked how he came on strong at the end of the year. I think we can all acknowledge that Bradley Chubb played better as the year wore on. And this is it's a compliment to Malik Reed, but it's also an acknowledgement of what they really are missing there. He called him Steady Eddie. And again, that's not a bad thing necessarily, but it's not like if you're somebody that says that about an outside linebacker, you're saying, okay, you're replacement level. Like you're a guy that we can bring in as a backup. We're going to get rotational maybe, but we need more there.
It's like saying that about a quarterback.
Well, 100%. So, we talked about Jonathan Cooper, talked about Malik Reed. It sounds to me, based on reading this, that there's interest in bringing Malik Reed back as a restricted free agent. That is what he's going to be. But the fact remains, you just nailed it. It's a good draft for edge rushers. The Broncos clearly have to upgrade.
Yeah, you'll probably keep 5 of those on the roster as well. And you have Bradley Chubb, if he's still on this roster, assuming he's not traded. In some kind of quarterback acquiring deal to acquire an all-pro from Green Bay, or something of that hypothetical nature.
Strictly hypothetical,
right? Weatherly and Reed are edge 3 and 4 kind of guys, so they need 1 and 2, and so you're gonna have to go to the draft. You're gonna have to go find those guys, and if Chubb turns into that guy, if he's here or whatever, but you're gonna have to find those guys. They probably take 2 in this draft.
Last one, running back. Javonte is going to be the guy, right? No, there's no question about that. But he did speak glowingly about Melvin Gordon, and kind of coupling that with some of Melvin Gordon's comments that he made out on Radio Row at the Super Bowl. You get sort of this sense and the feeling that maybe that door isn't completely closed. I know that you've talked about it as being highly unlikely. Melvin's been out on social media saying he wants to come back. There's a scenario where if the things work out the way you're sort of painting a picture with that certain quarterback, there might be an attractiveness to this team that might mean some free agents might say, hey, man, if I get a chance to chase a ring, I'd like to be around that. and it might offer some significant savings if you're thinking, as he's talking about, the 1-2 punch of what they brought, because they really were good together.
They were good together, but I think Melvin's going to want more than the Broncos probably willing to pay. If his free agency falls through and he's not able to, that's one thing. But I suspect that he is a guy that could wind up down in Houston, down in Miami, where they've got plenty of money and they need a running back. I suspect he could wind up a place like that and cash in one more time.
But his free agency didn't quite go as well as he wanted it to the last time around. Remember that? I mean, he was late in the process. Now he got paid. He got paid really well.
But his free agency didn't go well with the Chargers, but it went well when he got paid by Denver.
Yeah, but he was late in the process. He wasn't like first round of guys signed.
No,
he was
waited.
later. Yeah,
he waited to see if other offers would come through, and they didn't, so he took Denver's.
Yeah. Anyways, I thought there was some interesting stuff there. The stuff that really jumped out, of course, right off the bat was offensive tackle. That's something that they absolutely plan on taking some multiple swings at. They want to fill that long term. Tired of the turnstile there. Otherwise, a lot of this kind of lines up, I think, with what we've been talking about on Broncos Country Tonight. So really good stuff there. All right, for Benjamin Allbright, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching Broncos Country Tonight.